Hi, this is the Module 8 video, and at the end of this video I will go ahead and talk about the midterm and how you'll submit it and so forth. So in this particular module I went ahead and suspended the Ravitch and Darling Hammond book readings, but you do still have to read Chapter 8 of the Spring book. And in this Spring book, it refers to the growth of the welfare function of schools. And basically, due to lots of different factors that are going on in history, the public school has to take on many new roles that have to do with public welfare. And, obviously a lot of these issues involve increasing population in city centers, in urban centers. So you've got immigration, huge population increase there from people coming across, from Europe and so forth. And then you've got urbanization happening due to a lot of the industrialization. There's another zation happening. Industrialization, of course, brings a lot of workers out of the outlying rural areas into city centers. And then, of course, now that you've got all this population, and pretty poor population, we'll say too, working in city centers with very highly populated areas, you're going to have an outbreak of disease and personal hygiene issues that are going to take over as well during this time, and the importance of being clean and all of these things will affect how the schools deal with their students. So that's going to lead to things like having school nurses around, teaching about being clean, and having all of these little stories even that they'll tell in schools about how you should wash all the time and make sure you keep your house clean and these types of things, and obviously for a good reason, because of disease that would spread when you have a bunch of people in a tight what do you call it, when you have a large demographic population area increasing. So anyway, that's what Module 8 is essentially about. And the PowerPoint that I gave you is a very brief PowerPoint. It's only 3 or 4 slides, and it really just summarizes, the kindergarten movement, I think, is a part of it. After school activities become another part of keep bringing people together. Also opening up the school after hours for adult use if they want to take classes, or if civic organizations want to offer a meeting, offer some sort of program, they can have a meeting space in the schools after hours. So it's a pretty interesting chapter because you kind of find out where all of these different programs and just the just more that schools are now having to take on as part of dealing with problems of society. So that's Spring Chapter 8. And then in this particular module, I've also decided to talk about Annette Lareau and her research, and I find it, especially as a teacher, but as a mother as well, pretty interesting stuff. And she did a big study. I want to say it was 2001. But her study was actually really, really interesting for me in particular, and I think it'll help you as a teacher especially understand, this was a reprint, but this is a 2011 it's a second edition. So anyway, I only give you the chapter 1 and only a portion of chapter 1, and it really summarizes her entire book, her entire research. And I think what you're going to find is that she has, and there's a really good, let me just say this, there's a really good interview at the end of the PowerPoint that I provide summarizing her ideas. It's a very short, I want to say it's 15 minutes or so, interview with her where she summarizes all of this stuff marvelously, that you can really get what she's getting at. But basically what she's talking about is there's 2 approaches to raising children that she's identified, and they are very much tied to social class, social economic status. And I think it's an interesting, and obviously not everybody's always going to fit into these categories, but it really is interesting to look at her research and to look at some of the things that she found, especially how then you approach your job as a teacher, or your job dealing with young students, in some fashion, if you're let's say a speech pathology person. But she basically says that the middle class and the working class and poor classes, they have different ideas about how to raise kids and about how to, and she uses sort of a gardening metaphor, and that is concerted cultivation for the middle class and natural growth for the other classes, working class and poor classes. And, what do our institutions favor is her ultimate point, is that our institutions tend to favor those raised in a middle class type of atmosphere. So that's some really interesting information there. I think most teachers, obviously we're usually college educated, so we've usually come from a background that is more of the concerted cultivation type, and it is important for us to understand different ways of raising children, and then what our expectations of those kids are. If they're being quiet, if we're trying to get them to, participate in class, to talk, is that something that they're raised knowing how to do? Anyway, it's a really good PowerPoint. It's really good information. I found this particularly interesting in my experience as a teacher, and even my experience as a mother. So it's some interesting stuff. So go ahead and view that PowerPoint. You read the article first, and it's provided in the module, in Module 8. And then the midterm. Okay, that's all you're going to do. Well, you do have a discussion post that you have to do, and that's about the Laroe reading. But then you don't have a journal, you don't have a quiz, because you're going to be doing the midterm, and that is in a separate module. The instructions are I'm not sure I give you the instructions in the Dropbox, and you're going to watch a video. The video is of Sir Kenneth Robinson. He's an educationist. He's a person who's very famous in public policy, educational policy, and he's British. And he gives a TED Talk, and I hope you haven't seen this already. I hope it's sort of new to you, but if it isn't, I apologize. But he gives a really interesting TED Talk about education. So you're going to view that first, and then you're going to go ahead and respond via the Dropbox, the midterm Dropbox. I give you all the instructions. You're going to write an essay. It's a 4 to 5 page 12-point font, double-spaced essay responding to it. And I give you about 4 or 5 bullet points to make sure that you respond appropriately. And you're going to be making some connections to the reading, and make sure that when you make those connections to the reading that you're very specific. That if you do use a quote, make sure you use quotation marks. Make sure you give the page number and the book of where you found it. And when I say the readings, I mean all of the readings. If the Spring Book, any of the articles that we use, the Laroe stuff that we're going to use, the Ravitch or Darling Hammond books, it can be from any of those, but you have to make at least 3 connections. And when you do make those, please put them in APA format. If you're not familiar with APA format, you need to go ahead and become familiar with that, but I will try and post a link that is very helpful. It's the OWL Purdue. You've hopefully heard of it by now, but if not, I will put that link out there for you to, sort of help you with APA format. And of course, you can always ask for my help. You can email me if you're really clueless or whatever. But whenever we cite things, we don't use MLA in education. We always use APA. So that's just why you have to do that. So that's it. That's what you're going to do for the midterm. It's due by, I think, October 12th by midnight. And, if you have any other questions about any of this, please let me know. Thanks.